We are still in the Sacral Chakra, which is always an interesting place to be, if only because it is so directly committed and connected to our third eye chakra, and it is the center of all manifestation. So the Sacral Chakra is where divine will becomes manifest through the process of free will, or through the gift or power of free will in our daily lives. So last week when we talked about the Sacral Chakra, we talked about discipline. And it takes discipline to manifest the lives we want. And more importantly, it takes discipline to manifest the experiences we want, the experiences we contracted for ourselves before we were born, and the experiences that are required for our evolution as souls on the earth plane and beyond. Most people, when they think about manifesting, think about it in terms of the things they want and focus on manifesting stuff as opposed to the experiences that stuff is merely an instrument of. So the stuff, like manifesting a new car, well, the car is the instrument, the physical plane instrument that we use to create experiences. So in fact, what we should be doing is manifesting the experiences on the understanding that when we manifest the experience, all of the resources required for that experience become available. So I've noticed since about 2010, and more importantly from about 2013, after having moved into this space and this space itself, that whenever I focus on the experience, everything that I require for it becomes available. When I focus on the things that I need in order to make the experience possible, I go haywire. Nothing happens. It's like the things themselves are completely, forgive the pun, immaterial to the experiencing. And when we focus on the things, we limit our understanding of the possibilities and the potential of the experiencing. So when we want to use free will, literally, here in our heads, we should be focused, intending the experience and not the people or the places or the things required in our heads to fulfill the experience. The universe knows how to provide the experience without all of that extraneous stuff that we think is necessary to have the experience. And in fact, a lot of that stuff may not be required by soul at all. It's required by an ego understanding of how the world works. So we understand that if you want to fly anywhere in the world, you have to buy a plane ticket. And yet the experience of flying, the experience of going someplace, the experience of driving that car, etc., is not determined by any of those physical plane things. Yes, they won't let you on the plane without a ticket, I agree. But when you focus on the quality of life and the experiencing of it, then the instrument required to put you on that flight will become. Because the universe knows you can't get on that plane without that ticket. And of course, because it is creating, using divine will and your own free will to manifest the experience, it will provide the ticket. It might not provide the ticket to the city you chose, but it will provide the ticket. It will determine a destination or a sacred space where you may have the best possible experience in order to fulfill your desire for the experience, as well as your soul's requirement of the experience. In other words, the purpose of it for evolutionary purposes, and therefore the evolution of all consciousness. So when you start shifting it and looking at it in a greater context, it makes completely logical, sensible, reasonable sense that one should focus on creating the best quality experience, regardless of what the mind or the ego self determines to be the physical plane context of that. The sacral chakra is the chakra of free will. The sacral chakra, in human terms, represents the divine feminine, while the third eye represents the divine masculine. And so the sacral chakra, working in harmony with the third eye, becomes literally the flow or the process of balancing yin and yang, Shiv and Shakti. And when we bring the two together to manifest experience, we bring ourselves into balance and into receptivity, meaning we become open and available and accessible to the experience itself, so that the experience may feed into our cellular bodies, all of our chakras, all of the instruments of I, the soul, for becoming, and become manifest at its highest possible frequency on the physical plane. The sacral chakra is what we use to focus the intention, while the third eye chakra is what we use to bring it out of the universe, to inspire it into being. When we work with both together, we allow the third eye chakra to guide, to inform, to inspire the manifestation of the experience via the sacral chakra onto the earth plane. So today's meditation is about becoming in harmony with that sacral chakra. Very often we do meditations and I say get grounded, and we don't really feel grounded. And I say, can you feel, sense or imagine this particular chakra? And we know where it is. We know we can sense it, we can imagine the color, we can visualize it, but actually feeling it, opening, feeling it get activated, working with it so that it is dislodging all of the inhibitions and all of the limitations that the human ego places on it, is the purpose of today's exercise. So for today's exercise, nobody should be going to sleep or transcending or any other rationale for skipping out on the meditating. Yes, for today's exercise, we all need to be awake. We need to be aware and focused and being as ruthlessly honest as possible about feeling and working with the sacral chakra. So before we go into meditation, just to explain the view of it that we want to take, I want you to imagine that you are working with a clock. So there's the clock face, and the apex of every petal, there are only 6 petals in a fan-like formation on the front of the sacral chakra, that in turn flows through to the back of the sacral chakra. So the 6 petals, the apex of the very first petal is at 12 o'clock, and it flows outward from there in a very Arabic sort of arch into the 1 o'clock on the one side and the 11 o'clock on the other side. So you actually see that petal flowing outward from the center of the clock face through the 1 o'clock, through the 11 o'clock, and meeting again at the 12 o'clock. Does everybody have a picture of that? If you can't picture it, just yell at me. So it flows from the center, flowing outward exactly like a flower petal, into the 1 o'clock and the 11 o'clock, and then back into the 12 o'clock, so you get an apex. The second petal does exactly the same thing, except it has an apex at the 2 o'clock, and the third petal has an apex at the 4 o'clock. This is our first 3 petals. The fourth petal has an apex at the 6 o'clock, The next petal, the fifth petal, has an apex at the 8 o'clock, and then you have the very last petal, the sixth petal, with an apex at the 10 o'clock. In your mind's eye, try to draw this on the clock face so that when we're in meditation, it is already a familiar image, that you are already able to visualize it. Is there anybody online who doesn't get this? Remember, for the second petal, when the energy is flowing outward, it too will pass through the 1 o'clock on the one side and the 3 o'clock on the other in order to create an apex at the 2 o'clock. How's that working? It's easy to picture, right? Okay. So let's make this as clear a visual as possible. So we have 6 petals, and when I start working with them, I go in a clockwise direction because that is the average, generic, normal flow of all chakras in the present moment, working within a time and space dimension called your daily life or the moment. So in the moment, from a clock perspective, from a time perspective, we move in a clockwise direction. If I want to work in soul time, I would go in an anti-clockwise direction, very deliberately shifting the soul or the sacral chakra into divine timing as opposed to human earth plane timing. Halfway through the meditation, we're going to do that. We're going to turn things around so it feels like all of the spokes of the fan or all of the petals are now flowing in the opposite direction and informing the past of what no longer fits into the now moment and is released into divine timing in accordance with free will. This is a big issue, allowing things to unfold with divine timing in accordance with divine will and focused by free will. So those 3 parties that we cannot control actually have to be in communion with each other to work synchronistically for your highest good. Today's meditation is going to put us in a space where we want to feel these 3 factors at an energetic level, working at least with the first 4 bodies of your auric field, and most importantly with the chakra itself. Most people need to be hammered into feeling their chakras working. So we have things like intense pain or a feeling of shifting, sensations of warm and cold, tingling, discomfort, restlessness, or a detox after effect from this kind of work if we haven't done it before. Or if our minds, ego selves, are in too much doubt about what they are experiencing. So for the purposes of the meditation, you are required to feel as far as possible, put your minds in abeyance and focus in on feeling, simply experiencing. This is an experiential meditation.